I'm smelling coffee, birds are singing just outside. Here comes your mercy, streaming in with the morning light. My heart's racing, waking up to your smile, saying, good morning, good morning.
All right, well, good morning. Welcome back to Breakfast with the Bible. So I misspoke yesterday when I said Psalm 37 was next. Because I interjected Job, I kind of misplaced my days. So we're actually on 36 today. So it's only 12 verses. We're going to do the whole thing. And then tomorrow will be Psalm 37. So the transgression of the wicked saith within my heart that there is no fear of God before his eyes. For he flattereth himself in his own eyes, until his iniquity be found to be hateful. The words of his mouth are iniquity and deceit. He hath left off to be wise and to do good. He deviseth mischief upon his bed. He setteth himself in a way that is not good. He abhorreth not evil. The mercy, O Lord, thy mercy, O Lord, is in the heavens, and thy faithfulness reacheth unto the clouds. Thy righteousness is like the great mountains. Thy judgments are a great deep. O Lord, thou preservest man and beast. How excellent is thy loving kindness, O Lord. Therefore the children of men put their trust under the shadow of thy wings. They shall be abundantly satisfied with the fatness of thy house, and thou shalt make them drink of the river of thy pleasures. For with thee is the fountain of life. In thy light shall we see light. O continue thy loving kindness unto them that know thee, and thy righteousness to the upright in heart. Let not the foot of pride come against me, and let not the hand of the wicked remove me. There are the workers of iniquity fallen. They are cast down and shall not be able to rise. All right, so it has been noted that this is one of only of two of David's psalms that where he identifies himself specifically as using the phrase "the servant of the Lord." So in this superscription to the chief musician, a psalm of David, the servant of the Lord, this and Psalm 18 are the only two that mention that are referencing David this way. And so Psalm 18 was written from David's old age, and this psalm comes from a younger David. John Trapp commented, "From youth to old age he was David, the servant of the Lord, and he took more pleasure in the names of duty than of dignity." So I wanted to highlight that real quick. So verse 1, the transgression of the wicked saith within my heart that there is no fear of God before his eyes. David is saying, it is obvious to me that by the way they live, that they have absolutely no fear of God. The transgression of the wicked saith within my heart. So their transgressions are a clear indication that they are not fearing God, that they have no fear of God before his eyes. Spurgeon said, "Men's sins have a voice to godly ears. They are the outer index of an inner evil." So it's in your face. It says, kind of like you will know them by their fruit. Their transgression, their way of life is an indication that they absolutely have no respect, no fear of God whatsoever. Verse 2, "For he flattereth himself in his own eyes, until his iniquity be found to be hateful." Listen to this explanation. The wicked man lowers his estimation of God and raises his estimation of himself. Flattery to oneself is simply self-deception. It is its only form, thinking of yourself more highly than you ought, as Paul said. He flattereth himself. He butters himself up. He makes himself sound better than he really is in his own eyes, until his iniquity be found to be hateful. The wicked person will continue to deceive himself into believing his is both better than he is, and And then it will conceal his crime. So you could, I'm better than I am. I'm not as bad as you say I am. Those kinds of things. Once again, Spurgeon wrote in reference to, he flatters himself when his sin is discovered to smooth over one's own conduct to one's conscience, which is the meaning in Hebrew is to smooth one's own path to hell. So he convinces himself that the things that he's doing are not evil, they're not wrong. Pretty much what's happening today in our society. They're convincing themselves that all of this evil that they're doing is really for everybody's best interest. To be understood as if the wicked will attempt to sweet talk their way out of the true vileness of their sin, either by excuse or by justification. Verse 3, the words of his mouth are iniquity and deceit. He hath left off to be wise and to do good. So David describes ways to identify the wicked. One, by their words. The words of his mouth are iniquity and deceit. And then, if I can move my notes real quick. And then two, by their plans. Okay, so the words of his mouth are iniquity, and then he left off to be wise and to do good. He plans mischief upon his bed. He setteth himself in a way that is not good. He abhorreth not evil. He devises wickedness. So the words of his mouth are deceit, are iniquity and deceit, and he devises wickedness. In his habits, sets himself in a way that is not good. And in his attractions, he does not despise evil. Again, sounds a lot like today. There's plenty of people who you would express to them what God says is evil, and they're like, oh no, that's there's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly fine. So another commentator wrote, the evil person is not merely drifting into the evil ways, he is inventing ways to do it. In contrast to the godly who spent the wakeful hours of the night meditating on God and his commandments, as in Psalm 1. And then David transitions. He transitions to a contrast, closing the rest of this psalm with praise to God for his mercy and loving kindness. Thy mercy, O Lord, is in the heavens, and thy faithfulness reacheth unto the clouds. Quite appropriately, actually, David can only describe these characteristics of God by the use of the biggest things he can think of. In the heavens, and reacheth unto the clouds, and great mountains, and the deep of the sea, and he can't really reference anything bigger than those things. Again, verse 5, thy mercy, O Lord, is in the heavens, and thy faithfulness reacheth unto the clouds. The Lord's mercy is in the heavens, or reaches as far as the heavens. Now, we don't know how far the heavens go. We can't figure it out. I'm going to assume it's infinite because that's the way God is. So thy mercy, O Lord, reaches as far as the heavens. It means I can't get to the end of it. His faithfulness spans as far as the clouds, making an appearance to everyone. So it reaches to the clouds, it casts itself upon all existence. It means his faithfulness is available to everyone. It is apparent to everyone. It is able to be seen by everyone. These kinds of descriptions also support the truth that God's attributes can clearly be seen, again, by everyone. If we think about Romans 1, everyone is able to see it by creation. God's attributes have to be in a way described using things we can only see because we don't have any other point of reference. So David is using the biggest things he can think of. Verse 6, thy righteousness is like the great mountains. Thy judgments are a great deep. O Lord, thou preservest man and beast. The Lord's righteousness reaches above all. So the great mountains are literally translated into the mountains of God. So there can't be anything taller than that, anything bigger than that. If the Lord's righteousness was the tallest mountain on the earth, and the smallest grain of sand at the bottom of the sea would still be more righteous than man would without God. So there's this contrast that David is building for us so we can see, we can try to imagine. Okay, we can see the largest mountain on the planet. And we know that God's righteousness is bigger than that. Thy judgments are like a great deep. There is a depth to God's judgment, his justice, that makes it infinitely impossible for man to understand it completely. Not only is it deep as it goes beyond what we can imagine. It is deep in the sense that we really cannot just understand. You know, you think of the word that somebody says something wise and you say that's deep. God's wisdom, God's depth is so much further than we can even comprehend in our finite minds, which again, David has no other way to describe it than oceans and mountains and clouds and heavens. Isaiah 55:8 says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord." Again, we know that we cannot truly understand or comprehend the ways of the Lord. There are certain things that happen in life for one reason or another, that God has allowed or ordained, and we don't understand it right away, but it serves a purpose. So verse 7, "How excellent is thy loving kindness, O God, therefore the children of men put their trust under the shadow of thy wings." David knows here and proclaims that the Lord's loving kindness causes us to put our trust in his ability to protect us. Just the shadow of his wings is enough to keep us. So we're not even under physically. We're not necessarily covered. It's just, David is talking about the shadow of his wings. Just the fact that it's above us. Okay, that as the shadow of a tree would protect us from the heat of the sun. That the tree isn't on top of you. The tree you're not in the tree. You don't even have to be touching the tree. But the shadow is enough to keep you safe. The shadow is enough to protect you from the heat. And I mean, it's a great image. We put their trust under the shadow, just under the covering. Verse 8 says, "They shall be abundantly satisfied with the fatness of thy house. Thou shalt make them drink of the river of thy pleasures." David also is certain about the Lord's ability to satisfy the believers and satisfy the believer's soul. In his presence we will both be full and quenched. I think of, and then we go to verse 9, "For with thee is the fountain of life. In thy light shall we see light." One preacher quoted, "'Tis but a kind of dim twilight comparatively, which we enjoy here in this world. While we are hid in this prison house, we can see but little. But our Father's house above is full of light." John 1:9 says that Jesus was the true light, which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. "For with thee is the fountain of life." So the true source of life, the true everlasting source of life is in the Lord. In his light shall we see light. The only way we can see things clearly is if we're in his light. And Jesus Christ is the true light, is what John is saying. Verse 10, "O continue thy loving kindness unto them that know thee, and thy righteousness to the upright in heart." Simply a prayer for the Lord to continue blessing and protecting. Continue thy loving kindness unto them that know thee. So David isn't just praying for himself, like we know this already, that David isn't known to do that. He's always interjecting this supplication for others, this intercession for the children of God. This request to continue gives the idea of drawing forth or pouring out, a constant flow of the Lord's loving kindness. So if we look back to verse 9, it's this fountain of life, this continuous stream of loving kindness. So it's a characteristic that there's no end to. So we know that none of God's characteristics have an end. So this is that image here. Again, Spurgeon said, learn from this verse that although a continuance of mercy is guaranteed in the covenant, we are yet to make it a matter of prayer. So while David knows that the loving kindness of the Lord is continuous, he is a fountain of life, he's showing us that while we know these things, it's still important to pray. It's still important to have fellowship with God. We know the promises of God. We know what his word says. And we know that he's going to give us what we need to sustain life. Even if we weren't to pray for our daily bread, the Lord would promise to provide for us. But it's not an excuse not to come to him and have fellowship and have prayer with the Lord and spend time with him. I think it's more of a reason to do so because we know he's going to do it anyway. We should desire to spend time with him and to come to him in prayer and in basic conversation. Verse 11, let not the foot of pride come against me, and let not the hand of the wicked remove me. David ends with a prayer against the pride of the wicked. There are the workers of iniquity fallen there. They are cast down and shall not be able to rise. One second. This is a great warning for today, for this day and age. There is what verse 12. There are the workers of iniquity. Where? Verse 11. Pride. So the there in verse 12 is referring to the pride in verse 11. There is where the workers of iniquity fall. There is where they fall, and they're not able to rise. Pride will raise someone up in their own mind, as we saw earlier, flattereth himself. This is pride again. And it'll raise someone up in their own mind that they are so fallen they cannot rise. Pride will set you upside down. Calling good evil and evil good, walking in pride is a direct path away from the Lord. The Lord says to those with a warning. So there, the pride is where the workers of iniquity are fallen, because we know pride comes before destruction, a haughty spirit before the fall. They are cast down. They don't even realize it yet. But pride, welcome to June, is where the fall happens. Okay, pride is where Satan was cast out of heaven. Pride is where the fall of man began. This self-deception, this self-decision, this I know what's best. Pride is where the workers of iniquity are fallen and are cast down and shall not be able to rise. So this not be able to rise is they can't get themselves up. They can't stand on their own. The only way a proud person can really rise is by being humbled and casting off that pride and putting faith in Jesus Christ. There is no way that the pride will be able to stand on their own. So this warning of God through David to the pride says, march on, and the fall will come. They are cast down and shall not be able to rise. So, there is Psalm 36. Thank you for watching. I pray that this blessed you. I pray that it sheds some light as we look at verse 9. In thy light shall we see light. I pray that it's a fountain of life to you. I pray that as we go through Scripture, it allows you to see things that we may have never seen before. It challenges you. It blesses you. And then tomorrow, we've got Psalm 37, 1 through 8. And then we'll have the weekend, and we'll go from there. So again, thank you. Follow me on Twitter. Like, subscribe, share, comment, do all those things that you people do. And we'll see you next time. God bless.